This video is sponsored by the National Pork Board. Lordy, I love the cuisine of Mexico, and I love paying someone else to cook it for me because it's so much work. An authentic mole poblano, for example, involves about 30 ingredients and hours of cooking. But what I've tried to do here is reimagine this great classic sauce as a quick pan sauce for a quick weeknight pork tenderloin. I know it sounds crazy, but bear with me. Mole just means sauce, mole poblano being the sauce from the state of Puebla. It's famous here in the U.S. because it has chocolate, something not often used in savory dishes here, and as a result, I find its taste very transporting. When you can't travel, cook, I say, and pork can be your passport. So many of the great dishes of Mexico and tons of other cultures are built around this beautiful meat, and the meat can take you there. Pork is your passport to the great cuisines of the world. Hop on board and go. Of course, many of those dishes involve cooking the meat for a really long time, but this right here is one of my favorite weeknight cuts of meat, the pork tenderloin, the most underrated source of lean protein at the store. Why beef tenderloin is so expensive and this is not, I'll never understand. It cooks in a flash, it's tender as all get out, and it's an ideal substrate for any flavorful sauce, like our mole, which I've already started, by the way, with a few big garlic cloves and a shallot or two. Just crush and peel the garlic cloves, no need to chop them. Onions would obviously be traditional, but shallots are great for pan sauces because the layers are thin, so they cook super quickly. Plus, I don't need a whole onion's worth. I'm only making 2 or 3 portions. This tenderloin requires only one little bit of prep, and that is to trim off that silverskin there. That is not fat. It's connective tissue. It won't melt. The easy way to do this is just slip under it with a little knife. Don't try to get it all in one go. Just do a little strip at a time, and pull it up as you just shave underneath the rest. Once that end is loose, grab it taut and shave down the other side. You don't have to get every little molecule of this off. Just trim off most of it, and I would not trim anything else. There's hardly an ounce of fat on this thing. I'll just season it with pepper and salt, and I recommend a non-stick pan or a well-seasoned cast iron like I've got here on medium heat. A good amount of whatever oil you like to sear with. This is avocado oil. And the thing about tenderloin is it's very tender. It's soft. So the outside tends to get beat up and shred a little bit when it sticks to the pan. I'm avoiding this by constantly moving it around with my tongs. I'm not giving it a chance to stick. I just imagine sweeping around the oil with the meat until the protein structure on that side is seared firm. This is a technique that a lot of people use when cooking really delicate fish fillets. They'll shake the pan underneath the fish continuously until it's browned. Same exact concept here. Notice that it didn't fit in the pan before, but it fits now. Meat contracts. After 5 minutes, I've got a good sear on all sides, and now I'll take my heat down to medium-low and dump in my garlic and shallots. For a traditional mole, these would get roasted a long time, so you want to get them going early. Now I'm going to import a French idea and drop in some butter for pan roasting this meat. We'll just baste it continuously until it's done. The French would do that with a spoon, probably. I find you can get the exact same result by just continuously flipping the meat around and mopping up the butter with it. This is a tenderloin from a local organic producer I really love, and it's a little on the small side. It's a pound even. If you have a much bigger one, you might find it easier to transfer this pan to the oven. I used to always do that with pork tenderloin, but honestly, it's just not necessary to heat up the oven if you've got the time to kind of mother this in the pan. Just tossing it around to get even heat on all sides. Getting some good color on the garlic there. I can feel the pork getting kind of rigid, so I know it's about cooked inside. I'll take its temperature, and I'm looking for 145 Fahrenheit or 63 C. That will give you pork tenderloin that's still a little pink like that, and you absolutely can do that with modern American pork. Totally safe to eat after it rests for a few minutes. That was in the pan for 15 minutes total. Okay, a mole would traditionally be made with an array of dried chilies that you toast and then slowly rehydrate. We don't have time for that, so I'm putting in 2 canned chipotle peppers. Only 2. Go easy or these will be the only thing you taste. These are smoked chilies, and while that's definitely a different flavor than a toasted dried chili, it really does fulfill the same function. It gives you that dark, musky backbone to the sauce straight out of a little can. Now, traditionally, you'd toast and grind a whole array of nuts and seeds, pumpkin seeds, peanuts, probably owing to African influence on Mexican food, but we can get a similar effect much faster if we borrow a page from Southeast Asian cuisine and simply fry a little bit of peanut butter, or tahini, any nut or seed paste you have. Just fry it for a sec. Now, if you have a little square of Mexican chocolate, throw that in. I'm just going to put in some cocoa powder. That was a little too much. Just a little bit is what you want. The cocoa nibs for Mexican chocolate are generally roasted really dark, and again, we can simulate that by simply frying our cocoa a little bit. Okay, now spices. You could use some combination of any of these. A little ground coriander, cumin, dried oregano, a tiny pinch of cinnamon, and even tinier pinch of cloves. Now, to thicken this, you'd traditionally put in some stale corn tortilla and or slices of white bread. You just fry them and then stew them to let their starches gelatinize the sauce. That's a genius use of leftover food, but you really can get a very similar effect with just a little pinch of flour. You let it fry to get you that toasty flavor that you would get from toasting the bread or the tortilla. And then the last thing, because it tends to burn, is a little squeeze of tomato paste. A mole like this might have some roasted tomatoes in it. We can get a similar effect by simply frying a little tomato paste until it goes kind of rusty brown, and it is time to deglaze. Traditionally, you might ladle in the broth from where your meat is slow simmering, but water is totally fine for our purposes. We have all that fond in there from when we seared our pork tenderloin. Just scrape it up with your spoon. I'll simmer that for a few minutes to extract flavor out of the solids and gelatinize the flour. I would err on the side of reducing this down too thick because you could always water it down right before you spoon it over the meat. And mole is generally very thick. Mole poblano generally has some kind of sugar in it to balance the bitterness of the chocolate. It also usually has some dried fruits like raisins simmering in there for hours. We don't have time for that, but we do have this, a big spoonful of any fruit preserve. This is some local fig preserves. This will get us the sugar we need plus a little fruity flavor. Not quite what you get from dried fruit, but a preserve has a deeper flavor than fresh fruit. Give it a taste and see if it needs more salt or sugar or anything. And you could eat this chunky or you could puree it. I'm going to strain it, or am I going to puree it? When you use a metal sieve like this and really grind into it with a wooden spoon, you really are kind of pureeing it. Just make sure you scrape off all the puree sticking to the underside. All that's left is skin and seeds. And there is our weeknight mole. I've given my pan a cursory rinse back on medium heat, and I will put in maybe a tablespoon of toasted sesame oil, very potent stuff, and into that a 6-ounce bag of frozen solid lima beans. Don't worry, they'll thaw in a couple of minutes in here. Frozen limas are way better than canned, I think. This is a very simplified version of one of the best vegetable sides I ever had in my life. It was from a place in Louisville, Kentucky called Mayan Cafe. You just stir these for a few minutes until they start to brown. Pinch of salt, grind of pepper, optionally the zest of a lime, and make sure to give that grater a tap. And then not optional is the juice of said lime. Also a teeny pinch of sugar in place of caramelized onions. If you've got it, a handful of fresh parsley or cilantro right at the end, and we're ready to eat. Slice up that tenderloin. It's just the perfect amount of meat for a protein-heavy meal for 2 or 3, or mom and dad plus little kids. Our limey lima beans go on, and now that weeknight mole poblano. I believe we took a very different route to a pretty similar destination with that. You often see this sauce garnished with some toasted sesame seeds, and I'm very pleased with that. That pork is so juicy and tender. Even if you think you don't like lima beans, try these. The sesame oil just makes them come alive, and the lime really complements the sweet mole. 35 minutes of weeknight cooking, and I feel like I've taken a 1,500-mile plane flight. Thanks again to the National Pork Board for their sponsorship. Bring flavor to everyday moments with pork. Visit pork.org/realpork to learn more.